this is a little demonstration video just to show how we can take a series of numbered still images and convert them into a time-lapse video sequence. It's really easy. You can use Final Cut Pro for this, but it's a little bit more fiddly, it's a little bit more involved. So a really neat way of creating time-lapse videos, which you can then take and use in a Final Cut Pro project if you want to, is to use Quicktime Player 7. So I'm just going to load up Quicktime Player 7 here, and all I have to do is I go to the File menu and I go to Open Image Sequence. So I click on Open Image Sequence and it says, okay, point me to where your images are stored. So they just happen to be on my server. Okay, let me just tell you a bit about this. What I did yesterday, there's a building site nearby, so I set my Canon 550D on its smallest JPEG image setting, because they are actually still higher resolution than HD video, and the lowest JPEG resolution on my camera happens to be 2592 pixels by 1728, so quite a lot bigger than 1920 by 1080 video, so that's fine. Obviously also enables us to cram a lot of images on a card because they're only about 2 megabytes each, and I was using a 16 gigabyte card. So that's fine. So I've used the lowest quality setting. There's nothing to stop you doing a really high resolution video sequence if you want to using time-lapse, but in this case I'm going to convert it down to HD anyway, so I've just used the lowest JPEG setting. So I've gone to Open Image Sequence and I just basically point it at one of the images. They're all numbered, so it will automatically take in your numbered sequence. Now the only thing to be aware of is that it just so happened with when I was doing this yesterday is that it got to 9,999 on my camera because I forgot to reset it, and then it starts again. So it took images from about, I don't know, 9,500 to 99999 whatever, and then reset, which means that your numbered sequences are going to be in the wrong order. So what I would do is make sure that when you do this that you reset the counter so that you're starting from 0001. As I didn't do here, as you can see, because it starts from 0621. Anyway, so you just point it to your first image and just go open, and then very neatly it says, okay, what frame rate would you like to use for your image sequence? And you've got all these different settings. I'm just going to use standard PAL rate, 25 frames per second. You could use 24 frames a second if you wanted to make it look a little bit more film-like, but I'm just going to stick to the standard PAL, 25 frames a second. I click on OK, and then in a few seconds it will have opened up the first image. So we'll just let it do that. Excuse me. Hopefully this won't take too much longer. It's probably going to crash on me just in the middle of recording. Excellent. Is it going to work? Is it going to work? Is it going to work? Test. Why is it thinking so hard about it? Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've got the first image loaded, and you can see this is at 100% just how big this image is, because I can only see the tip of the crane. So I'm just going to go to View. Let's put it on Fit to Screen so we can see what's going on. So there you can see my first image of this building site. They're just erecting a new school nearby. Now, one other thing to be aware of is that still cameras usually take their photographs with an aspect ratio of 3:2 or 1.5:1 if you like, and that is not the same aspect ratio of HD as HD video is, which hopefully you know is 16:9, or if you were making it for cinema, you wanted to make it look more film-like, you might use 2.35:1. So what we've got to be careful of is that if I render this out as an HD video sequence, 1920 by 1080, it will end up messing around with the aspect ratio because it was originally recorded with a ratio of 3:2. So if I try and change it, it's going to make things look a bit more stretched horizontally, which I don't want. So I'll explain how we get around that in a minute. So here's my first image, and then literally all we do is we export it. So we go, actually, before I show you that, what you can do if you want to is mark in and out point. So it might be that you don't need all of the video sequence. Maybe something important didn't happen for, say, 2 hours. So what's the point of using it? So let me show you how you do that as well. So let's say we scroll along, okay, and let's say I'm going to mark an in point at, say, that point there. So I'll press the I key, and let's go along here, and let's go, I don't know, it's picking up this piece of steel here, look, and let's mark an out point there. Okay, so you don't have to use the entire image sequence. So then what you do is you go to the File menu and you go to Export. Now, this is where you can choose what codec and format you want for the video. Now, if I wanted to put this straight onto the internet, on something like YouTube or Vimeo or whatever, I would use Movie to MPEG 4. But I don't. Let's say that I want to use this within a Final Cut Pro project. Let's say that I want to combine it with other existing video. Well, the important thing is with all video projects is let's make sure that we choose the correct codec. Let's make sure we're choosing the same codec that we're going to be using for all of our other footage, so that we don't have any rendering problems when we come to the edit. So I'm going to use the same codec that I use for all DSLR video projects on my Mac, and that's Apple ProRes. In this case I'll use Apple ProRes LT because it's reasonable quality and it doesn't have massive file sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Export, and I'm going to go to Movie to QuickTime Movie, and I'm going to go to Options, and this is where we choose everything. Okay, so if I go to Settings, now it's already on the correct one, look, but it's set to Apple ProRes LT. You could choose lots of different ones. So if you were using, say, DV footage off a mini DV camera, you could use the DV PAL codec, or you could use HDV 1080i50 if you're using HDV footage within your project, which some of you probably will be. But in this case, I'm going to keep it on Apple ProRes LT. The frame rate, current, I'm just going to make sure it's 25, so I don't trust that, so I'm going to change that to 25. And that's it in there. So we're going to come out and go OK. And the only other thing is I want to do is click on size. Now this is important because this is what I was talking about earlier, and this is where we choose what our final dimensions of our video sequence is. Again, lots of different presets, standard, definition, HD, VGA, whatever. PAL video, HD video. So remember what I said earlier, if we were using HDV, which uses 1440 by 1080, that's the one we'd use. But in this case, I'm going to combine it. Let's pretend I'm going to combine it with some full 1080p video. I'm going to choose 1920 by 1080. And again, what I talked about, the aspect ratio. If I don't tick preserve aspect ratio, what that will do is it will stretch the pixels horizontally, because if you remember I said that the original still images were a 3:2 aspect ratio, and that will end up with a really stretched image. So I'm going to tick preserve aspect ratio, and I'm going to use a crop, and that will just crop some of the picture down. Doesn't matter, we've got lots of information in there, so that it fits the same aspect ratio within 1920 by 1080. Hope that makes sense. So then I go to OK, and that's it. Click on OK. We'll choose a name for it, so let's call it I don't know, doesn't matter, does it? Building site, whatever. And we go save, and then it will export those still images into a full time-lapse movie. Okay, so I'll just fast forward through this video now, because obviously it's going to take a few minutes to render, and we'll have a look at the resulting file. Okay, so that's now rendered. That probably took about 5 minutes really. But now that's finished, let's just have a look at what that actually looks like. So let's go to that file that it's made. It was in here, Okay, so there it is. Sorry, there it is, building site. Let's have a look. So just open that up. We'll go to full screen. So there you go. So it's cropped it down a little bit, so you can see it's made it a bit more widescreen to stick with the 16:9 aspect of HD video. We'll just hit play, and there you go. There is the time lapse. And because that's used, I'll just stop that. Because that's used the Apple ProRes codec, I could then take that, put it into a Final Cut Pro timeline alongside some other HD DSLR video, and combine it in the edit. So I hope that was useful. Have a play with time lapse. You can get some really interesting results. Okay, see you later.